Hey everybody, and welcome back to another severe storm film or weather forecast. In this forecast, we have a very active weather pattern setting up, so let's get right into it without further ado. Taking a look at the jet stream across the United States, notice here how we have a very strong low pressure system just off the coast of California, and that's bringing in some very cold Canadian and Arctic air on the backside. You're definitely going to be feeling that as we head into the day tomorrow across areas like California. But ahead of that, we have a high pressure system set up in the southern plains, and that is dragging in moisture as far west as the southwestern United States. What that is going to do is that's going to allow for a tornado threat to evolve across this area as we head in towards this evening. Los Angeles, Phoenix, Arizona, and surrounding areas need to be on alert, all right? So these are areas that don't typically see tornado threats, especially when it comes to this time of year. So definitely watch out if you live over there. Taking it into the daytime hours for your Tuesday, this low pressure system moves even closer to California. The tornado and damaging wind threat will likely be on the increase across those areas as we get that moisture to backlash itself. We will also have some threat of severe weather where that moisture trends, overlapping that wind shear across areas like Arizona back into Colorado and Utah, where I think we could have at least some isolated to scattered severe storms. Going into Wednesday, we're likely going to see that storm system slowly but painfully move off towards the east. It's in Nevada at this time, and it's still dragging in some very cold air on its backside, all right? So you're going to be feeling that backlash of that cold front in California and surrounding areas once you're on the backside of that. Could see more of a significant threat of severe weather in this area, maybe a slight risk day across this area on Wednesday. Something to keep an eye on there. And in the eastern United States, we're going to likely have a cold front coming through these areas, which is likely going to drag down a shot of cold weather. So it's definitely going to be felt across these areas, so make sure you're ready for that. You might need to bundle up in some areas for the day on Wednesday. And then as we take it into the daytime hours on Thursday, this storm system finally starts to get going, all right? It's not going to move that fast still, but it's likely going to be moving faster than it will be tomorrow and even Wednesday, all right? Notice here how this is still a very organized upper-level low-pressure system, and you notice here this high-pressure system still yanking up enough moisture into the central and northern United States even, where I think we could get a severe weather threat anywhere from Kansas back up into southern Minnesota, all right, where a warm front's going to be kind of draped right here with your strong cold front kind of surfacing right there, all right? Your triple point action will likely be in that area, so a tornado threat's definitely going to be evident with this. Watch out if you live in the plains on Thursday. As we head into the day on Friday, this thing will likely continue to move off towards the north and east. All right, it's going to weaken a little bit, but look what's happening down here. All right, we have a reinforced shot of cold air. All right, this is going to turn into a bigger storm system once it moves over the Rockies, and that's going to be something to watch for this entire area right here. All right, watch what happens with it as we head beyond Friday and into Saturday. All right, that reinforced shot of energy moves very rapidly across the Rocky Mountains, which means we could have some very volatile, fast-moving, severe thunderstorms across this circled area. We could even have a severe weather outbreak somewhere in this area, with the tornado threat being definitely centered across the Arklatex and Oklahoma and Missouri region. All right, all hazards are possible where I circled previously though, so definitely be weather aware no matter what if you were in that circle region. Sunday, I definitely see a continuation of severe weather for areas like the Great Lakes back into the East Coast, where damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes will be possible with maybe a QLCS event. And then as we head into the daytime hours on Monday, a week from today, all signs point towards another strong storm system that could eject over the Rocky Mountains sometime as we head in towards the middle and later part of next week. That could bring the return of significant severe weather to the Great Plains as well as the Midwest in future coming days. And now let's take a look at our precipitation trends over the course of the next 7 days or so, all right? Notice here how, like I said before, we have a strong low pressure system just off the coast of California. That is bringing down a cold front. Like I said before, we got to watch out in these surrounding areas for the possibility of a tornado threat as we headed towards this afternoon. Most of it looks centered over Arizona, but I'm still not ruling out Southern California. So you got to watch those areas closely. Along the immediate cold front, there is a band of showers that will likely bring in some gusty winds on the backside. Other than that, though, it is not really going to be anything too crazy. As we head into the daytime hours tomorrow, this will likely move into California. There could be some severe wind gusts with this cold front squall line right here across areas like, the Los Angeles region, saying tomorrow afternoon. But I don't think, like I said before, it's going to be anything too crazy. And I also can't really rule out the potential of an isolated spin up. And then as we head in towards Wednesday, though, the low pressure system, like I said before, at least the upper low, is going to move into Nevada. It's not going to be moving very fast, all right? And you notice your surface lows all the way over here. So it's going to displace itself from the cold front. So Wednesday could be a bit more of a laid-back day in terms of severe weather. However, mountain snow and showery activity will still be possible. And we could maybe get a couple of storms that could go strong across, the southwestern United States. But I don't really see it picking back up until we head in towards Thursday. All right, Thursday could be a bigger day across this area where we could have all hazards on the table. Looks like it's nailing Nebraska. Looks like it's nailing eastern Colorado. But that entire circled area should watch out for the possibility of severe storms. Going into Friday, I think we could have some isolated storms capable of producing some gusty winds up here across portions of Minnesota and Iowa as we get that moisture return to get very far to the north. Going into the day on Saturday, this is when I think we could see a bit more of a significant severe weather threat. Anywhere from, like I said before, Illinois, Indiana, back into areas like Texas, where we would have all hazards being possible, including the potential for tornadoes. So definitely stay weather aware there. Going into the day on Sunday, the severe weather will likely shift off towards the east, encompassing areas like the Ohio Valley back into the southern Great Lakes, where, like I said before, we could possibly have a non-severe wind event, meaning non-associated with thunderstorm wind event going on across this area. So any shower and storm line that develops isn't going to take much. Isn't going to need much to turn severe, all right? So we could be looking at a quasi-linear convective system event somewhere in this area. We're just going to need to see how timing evolves because that will change location. So definitely just watch out if you live in the Ohio Valley and southern Great Lakes as we head in towards next Sunday. Going in towards next Monday, our next storm system's on the heels of the western United States. This one could be a bit more of a snowmaker across areas of the mountains terrain of the western United States. And then as we take it beyond that, things become a lot more uncertain. However, like I said before, this could bring the return of more significant severe weather to areas like the plains and the upper Midwest even, where all hazards would be possible as we head in towards next week. So definitely a lot to keep an eye on with this active weather pattern not slowing down anytime soon. All right, next let's take a look at our temperature trends over the course of the next week or so, all right? So notice here we have our nor'easter across the eastern United States that's bringing in above average temperatures but rainy conditions on its eastern side, with some cooler conditions being noticed here on the backside of this low pressure system as it kind of tries to get a hold of some Canadian air up here. All right, so you're feeling that across areas of Virginia and North Carolina, but the bigger pocket of cold air is located in this vicinity right here. Like I said before, where we have a sharp cold front racing across areas like California, bringing severe weather hazards. And then as we take it into the daytime hours tomorrow, we're likely going to see this on the move. Like I said before, well below average temperatures possible in the California region. In addition to that, well below average temperatures to slightly below below average temperatures possible in the northwest and northern Rockies. And then as we take it into the daytime hours on Wednesday, that thing's not really going to move all that much. Like I said before, we will likely see a high setting up in the middle of the country that's likely going to drag in enough moisture ahead of this to where we could have a severe weather threat across the Colorado mountains, as well as areas like New Mexico. And then as we take it into the daytime hours on Thursday, we're likely going to see that front finally moving. All right, like I said before, it's likely going to be kind of something like this. We're probably going to have severe weather ahead of this, like I said before, where we have the overlapping ingredients per se. And then as we take it into the daytime hours on Friday, that cold front kind of washes out. But as we head into Saturday, it comes back with a kick. All right, notice here how we have the whites here. This is average temperatures. But look ahead of this front. All right, you got well above average temperatures anywhere from the Gulf back into Canada, where some areas in Canada will be experiencing up to 15-degree above normal temperatures. In addition to that, look what happens as we head into the day on Sunday. All right, well below average temperatures, slightly below average temperatures, coming in right behind this cold front for areas of the Great Lakes, upper Midwest, and Ohio Valley. Like I said before, this is going to be a sharp front on Sunday, so I would watch out for severe weather if you're ahead of this on Sunday. And then as we head into the daytime hours on Monday, our next storm system comes in. This one looks to be a bit more intense with its cold air. Look at what this does as we head in towards the long range, all right? I don't want you guys to lock in on this yet, but notice how it brings in a pocket of cold air to a lot of the country as we head in towards the end of October, all right? Notice how far south it goes into Arkansas and these surrounding areas, all right? So this would be a bigger cold blast than what we've seen lately, so it's definitely something to watch over the course of the next week or so. All right, now let's take a look at our wind threats with these storm systems, all right? Not just severe thunderstorm winds, but gusty winds associated with these storm systems, all right? Taking a look here, 850 millibar wind energy. Notice here up in Canada, we have a strong low pressure system, which is bringing around actually wraparound blizzard conditions, I forgot to mention, to areas like central Canada, where they are definitely experiencing the howling winds right now, gusts as high as 40 miles an hour and being mixed down here, all right? The 60 mile per hour winds are staying up here with, but in the heavier snow, which is a lot of it, we could bring down some 50 mile per hour wind gusts. So this is a pretty windy system. Over here in the Northeast, this is also a really windy nor'easter back for southern New York, back into the coastal areas of New England, where we have had damaging wind gusts with this system being mixed to the surface. So definitely continue to watch out if you live over there. Going into the daytime hours tomorrow, could have some gusty winds overall in the plain states, all right? I don't really see anything above 30 miles an hour, but it will be breezy, and you will notice that over there. And then as we head into the day on Wednesday, I really don't expect much in the way of wind. There could be some gusts over 30 at times with this, this cold blast that's coming into the Northeast, but other than that, it is likely going to be fairly calm in terms of wind across the country. Before we take it into the day on Thursday, I think we could have maybe some 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts trying to sneak in across the plain states. In addition to that, we could have, some 25 to 30 plus mile per hour gusts being possible over there in the eastern United States. And then taking it into the day on Friday, we're likely going to see those winds kind of calming down in the plains a little bit, but in the upper Midwest, we're likely going to see those winds kind of starting to gust over 30 at times. And you notice here as we head in towards Saturday how that low-level energy continues to kind of expand per se. All right, this is typically a sign that we're going to start getting big storm systems. All right, and notice here we have one up here in Canada and we have one down here in the south central states, all right? Look at how all this moisture is feeding northward in this low-level jet energy. This is why I'm so concerned about severe weather. All right, look at this low-level jet screaming over the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes as we head in towards Sunday morning, with the low pressure system sitting here, making these areas very at risk for severe weather and damaging winds with this storm system. All right, we could have gusts over 50 at times if this were the case across the Tennessee Valley, back up into especially the Great Lakes region. Things will be changing with this, but it's going to be a really big wind event if this is the exact case as we head in towards this time frame. All right, now, like I said before, we're looking at the low-level jet. But if we could get a line of severe thunderstorms, these are definitely going to be very strong across these areas. Possibly 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts, all right? So we got to keep an eye on that closely if you live there. And then that system moves out. That brings all the heavy wind gusts into Canada. Perhaps some really windy conditions across the northeast for the day on Monday. And then maybe another one as we headed towards Monday for the southern plains. But yeah, overall, lots of wind expected with these storm systems over the course of the next 7 to 10 days. And lastly, after we've broken down this highly active weather pattern with tons of severe weather coming our way, let's now take a look at our attention briefly to the tropics, all right? We have Tropical Storm Lorenzo, all right, a 45 the 50 mile per hour storm, 45 knots, 50 miles per hour, and it is moving off towards the north and northwest. This will likely not impact anybody, all right? This is going to head pretty much due to the north as we head in towards tomorrow, so nothing to worry about for the United States and Caribbean. All right, folks, I'm Severe Storm Filmer. Make sure, as always, to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my forecasts. As when I post, they are for important reasons. Leave any questions, comments, concerns you might have down below. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and stay safe out there.